This is Carl. It is Wednesday, the 18th of March, and I'm doing the second video of the week, which is part 15 of the book of Judges. And we're going to cover the very famous chapter, Judges 16, which is a story about what we know in the world today called Samson and Delilah. Very famous story. There's songs about it, lyrics and songs, etc. But what I want to glean out of this for both of us, for you and myself, to me, the underlying thing of this is we mentioned that as a young person, he went and demanded to his parents that he have a certain woman and to go get her, and he didn't really care whether they objected or not, and they just sort of told him, well, can't you find anybody in your own land of the Hebrews that would appeal to you? And he didn't even seem to hear him. He just says, I want her, go get her. And she was in the land, I believe it was Timnah, and she was a Philistine, and it was forbidden for the Hebrews were not to intermarry with those of pagan religions, but it didn't bother him. So he started there. His parents, not wanting any friction, maybe they were trained by Dr. Spock, I don't know, and I'm not a Spock expert. But they didn't want to frustrate him, or for whatever reason. I don't know the reason. And but it just shows you that where we're going to end up in our life, if we do, even if, and I've heard people say there's no such thing as a carnal Christian. And I'm not going to argue the semantics. I'm not very good at semantics, nor do I have a lot of interest in it. And I'm not one who does a lot of word studies. In fact, I don't do any. Then you may say, well, what do you do? I'm not sure. But we can look at one thing. If you allow at any point in your life lust, and I don't mean just physical lust like Samson, lust for anything that is not Christ and Christ dependent and centered, and that now takes control of you. If you don't put a stop to it, it has the potential of eventually being the reason you die, which is we're going to see with Samson. And you all know the stories, but I'm going to go through it. But just notice this and look at it. This is what will happen to me if I do not allow the power of the Holy Spirit, per Romans 8:13, to mortify the deeds of the body. Now that whole idea about it, I've heard people say there are no carnal Christians. I can tell you, then let's not use the word carnal. There are Christians who live in the flesh. And if you read Romans 6, 7, and 8, Romans chapter 6, 7, and 8, you can't deny the fact that there are people that are born again. They believe the gospel, they're saved, and they still are living in the flesh. To me, that's a carnal Christian, but some people say that's a contradiction of terms. I don't know. Let's just look at this and apply it to ourselves. And incidentally, this is where I'm going to stop in Judges. I'm going to stop in the book of Judges, And then I'm going to go to the book of 1 Samuel and read 6 to you again. And in 1 Samuel, we're going to see that Samuel, and I think I'm just delaying here. You know what? I'm going to negate everything I just said here. I'm gonna do 1 Samuel. We're gonna start in chapter 1 because that's very interesting. There's a lot to be gleaned from chapter 1 and from a spiritual level, and then we're gonna get into verse 6, and we're gonna see where these Hebrews, even after the book of Judges, what they did, and they came out and they basically separated themselves from God. They wanted a king rather than God to rule them, and it was really sad. But I want to read a little bit in 1 Samuel. So I've probably got another probably 2 sessions to go, and then I think at the present time. I think what I'm going to do, and I've been mulling it over. I've been thinking for probably close to a year of doing the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I've done the, outside of the Gospels, the 4 Gospels, my earlier videos going back. In fact, today is exactly 6 years to the day that I've completed doing the videos. And so I'm going back several years, but you'll see that I've covered everything except for I haven't done the book of Acts and I haven't done the 4 Gospels. So I have 5 books to do in the New Testament, and I'll have completed that. But who knows what will happen in the next week. But right now, that's my game plan. So let me go into this and start moving now on book of Judges, chapter 16. Because I'm going to spend the whole time introducing it and not doing anything. Okay, Samson went to Gaza, and he saw a harlot there, and he went into her. See, every time we open up about something with Samson, he goes somewhere and he sees a harlot. And it's always a foreign harlot who is associated with false gods, idols, etc. When the Gazites were told Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and they lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, in the morning when it's daylight, we will kill him. And Samson lay low till midnight. Then at midnight he took hold of the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 gateposts, pulled them up, and bar and all, and put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Afterward it happened that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said, entice him and find out what his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. Every one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So we're back to the same old thing. A prostitute, if you want to call it that, is going to turn on the charms, and this guy, Samson, whose lust is out of control, can't resist as he has in the past, and this is going to be his final fling. Again, the moment sin comes into your mind, the thought, do 2 Corinthians 10:5. Take every thought that is against Christ, against God, and bring it into the captivity of the obedience of Christ. We don't even have to fight it. We don't even have to be able to get rid of that thought and cleanse ourselves from it, because we can't. We give it to the obedience of Christ and trust by faith Christ is going to handle it, and it happens. I am promising you. The one disclaimer, you've got to want to not do it. And that's a step. I've told you in the past, there's times when I've wanted to do things wrong. Okay. So here we got her selling now, and then people bribing her, and the same old thing. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies and what you may be bound to afflict you. Samson is at this point, when lust is overtaking his thought pattern, he's dumber than what part of no don't you understand. So Delilah is actually telling him why she wants to entice him and why she wants to mesmerize him, whatever it is, so she can find out from him what his strength is, and that she's going to say, well, actually, I'm actually going to give it to your enemy, and they're going to destroy you with it. But his lust is so strong because he festered it. Back when he was a young kid, his parents should have sat on him when he said, you get me that woman. And they said, no, can't you find anybody in the Hebrews? And he just says, go get her, I want her. He didn't even answer the question about the morality. Whenever we do that, folks, we're opening the doors for Delilah to destroy us. Think about it. So Delilah said to Samson, tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you may be bound, so we can afflict you. And Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, yet not yet dried, I'll become weak and be like other men. So the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, and she bound him with them. Now when the men were lying in wait, staying with her in the room, she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he broke the bowstrings as a strand of yarn breaks when it touches fire. So the secret of his strength was still not known. Okay. Then Delilah said to Samson, now at this point, don't you think Samson should have said, hey, Delilah, get out of here or I'm gone? Nope. Lust. But it could be lust for anything. Whatever is taking my place and my desire away from Jesus Christ is lust, and it will destroy me. And I know a couple of things that really could have set me off and destroyed me. And in their own right, there was nothing wrong with them. I mean, there was nothing fattening, illegal, or immoral. It had to do with automobiles and automobile competition. Okay, Delilah said to Samson, look, you've mocked me now, and you've told me lies. Please tell me what you may be bound with. Here again, how stupid is he? But this is what sin does to you. It causes us to get into an irrational state. It causes great confusion, mental confusion. I felt it. Tell me what we may bind you with, please. If they bind me securely with new ropes that had never been used, and I'll become weak like other men. Therefore Delilah took new ropes and bound them with them, and she said to the Philistines, the Philistines are on you, Samson. And men were lying in wait, staying in the room, but he broke them off his arms like a thread. Now Delilah said to Samson, until now you've mocked me and told me lies. told me what you may be bound with. If you weave the 7 locks of my hair into a web of the loom, she wove it into with the batten of the loom, and said to him, the Philistines are upon you. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled out the batten and the web from the loom. Then she said to him, how can you say I love when your heart is not with me? In other words, you still want to play these little night games that we play, or whenever they played them. She's putting the pressure on him. She knows his lusts will overcome his mind. And that is in anything that I've got a weakness, a moral weakness. How can you say I love when your heart is not with me? You've mocked me these times, 3 times, and you've not told me where your strength lies. It came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him, so that his soul was vexed to death, that he told her all his heart, and said to her, no razor has ever come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I'll become weak like any other man. She finally got to him. When Delilah saw that he told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistine, come up once more, for he has told me all his heart. So the lords, this is unbelievable. The lords of the Philistine came up to her and brought her money in her hand, and then she lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man to come over and shave the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. So he awoke from his sleep and said, I'll go out as before at other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. This is the risk we run when we continue to commit sin. I got away with it yesterday, maybe for the last week, maybe for the last month, maybe for the last year, maybe the last 10 years, decade. There's going to come a day when the Spirit of the Lord is going to depart from you, and you're going to be standing there, a victim of Satan, and he is going to beat you to a bloody pulp as he did Samson. So listen, the Philistines took him and put out his eyes. Good price to pay for a few nights with a tramp. And brought him down to Gaza. Now, I wonder if at that time, if someone would have said, hey, Mr. Samson, let me do a little interview with you on the street. Candid camera type thing. You really think it was worth a few minutes of pleasure you had for what you're going through now, your eyes? And I'm sure they didn't put him to sleep. I'm sure they just plucked him out of his head. That had to be a wonderful result of unbridled sin. They bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in prison. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaven. The lords of the Philistines gathered together, and they offered a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, little g, false god, and they said, our God has delivered into our hands Samson, our enemy. And when the people saw him, they praised their little God. So it happened when their hearts were merry, meaning they, I'm sure, were soused on wine or whatever they drank, that they said, call for Samson that he may perform for us. Who knows what little lewd tricks he did? I don't know. So they called for Samson from the prison, and he performed for them. And they stationed him between the pillars. Then Samson said to the lad who held him by the hand, let me feel the pillars which support the temple so that I can lean on them. He had no eyes, remember? Now the temple was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. Now remember that verse we read earlier in Samson's life? that God allowed his parents and him to pursue the woman in Timnah that he wanted so badly, and God had it in his plan that he was going to take out the Philistines. We're getting to it. The temple was full of men and women. All the Lord of the Philistines were there, about 3,000 men and women on the roof watching while Samson performed. 3,000 people on it. It had to be a pretty good engineering structure of a roof. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me." See, Samson, he as evil as he was, and it really did killed him literally. He never forgot God, never forgot God, and he is in Hebrews chapter 11, the faith chapter. He prayed just one more time, "God, that I may take one blow in vengeance on the Philistines, because they took out my 2 eyes." And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars which support the temple. So he had a basic concept of physics and where the center of gravity and all the weight was. So he understood that. Probably the Holy Spirit gave him that. And he braced himself against them, one on his right, one on his left. Then Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the lords of all the people who were in it. So the dead that were killed at his death were more than he had killed in his whole life. And that goes right back to where God said about Samson when he wanted, he told his parents he wanted this immoral girl. It said there that God was going to allow this to happen for him to go to this woman, because God was going to take vengeance on the Philistines, and this is it at the end of chapter 16. And his brothers and all his father's household came down and took him and brought him up, and they buried him in Zorah and Eshtaol, in the tomb of his father Manoah, and he judged Israel for 20 years. Okay. So we have that situation with Samson. Now I'm going to go chapter 16. We finished that. Now I'm going to go into the book of 1 Samuel, and I'm going to read chapter, at least a good part of chapter 1. It's a rather lengthy chapter. It's probably, it's 28 verses. I'm going to read it because there's a lot of good spiritual encouragement here. Now, you had a gentleman that was in the mountains of Ephraim. His name was Elkanah. And Elkanah had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the other one was a lady by the name of Peninnah. Okay? Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now get this. And this is, they used the time of sacrifice and worship to the Lord to do this. And we can do the same thing. Are we using our time in church for even maybe at times looking at things we shouldn't? You know, nobody can carry a Bible anymore. We all carry our cell phone or our iPad. You think it's possible that somebody may be looking at something they shouldn't do in the church? I mean, this is as old as Adam and Eve. This is not new. All right. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. This man went up from his city yearly to worship the sacrifice to the Lord, to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And whenever the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, although the Lord closed her womb. And her rival also provoked her severely, which is Peninnah, 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 Peninnah. Her rival provoked her severely to make her miserable because the Lord closed her womb. She had no children. So it was, year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, that she provoked her. Peninnah provoked Hannah and ridiculed her and made fun of her and sport of her because she had no children. Therefore she wept and would not eat. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? So Hannah arose after she had eaten and drank in Shiloh, and now Eli was the priest sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord, and Eli was a waste of human flesh as far as the priest. His 2 sons were so evil, God killed them in one stroke. And she was in bitterness of soul, and she prayed to the Lord. Now that's a good one. When you're in bitterness of soul, pray to the Lord. And I'm not even sure what things, I know a few people that I know from my Bible studies. I still know them that are in bitterness. This is a good way of putting it. Their bitterness of the soul. Things are just so overwhelming to them and for so long that this is a good description. And strangely enough, and I thank God for it, I am constantly encouraging them to pray. So this gives me encouragement that we're going in the right direction. And she wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on affliction of your maidservant, remember me. This is a prayer of faith. She knew that God had the power to open her womb and give her a child. And not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child. I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. Now, Samson was born as, I would say, miraculously, and the fact his mother had no children, and they prayed, and they had Samson. And also, John the Baptist was a similar Mary. It was the baby Christ was conceived in Mary by the Holy Spirit. Definitely miraculous. Any birth to me is a miraculous, but this is definitely a miraculous. This is a prayer that, and the same thing with Isaac. When Sarah and Abraham had the promise made that they would have a child, and they will both be on the age of bearing children. They couldn't physically come together and have a child, and God miraculously gave them a child. This is another one. And she made a vow, O Lord of hosts, if you'll look on my affliction of your maidservant and remember me, I will not forget. And she said she would then dedicate the child to the Lord, which she did. And Samuel was a child, and he stayed true to the Lord all the days of his life. Tremendous figure in the Old Testament of the people of Israel. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord, and Eli watched her mouth. Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli said, here's Eli the priest. He has no clue of faith, it appears. He says she's drunk. So Eli said to her, how long will you drink? Put away your wine right now. But Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but I poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken. That's why I tell you, when people are of their bitterness of soul, cry to the Lord. God responds to desperation. He does not respond to lukewarmness. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant you your petition you have asked of him. And she said, Let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. When they rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, they returned and came to the house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of the time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and they called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked the Lord for him from the Lord. I have asked for him from the Lord. That's verse 20 of 1 Samuel 1. Now the man of Elkanah went up to him, and all his house went up to offer to the Lord yearly the sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah did not go up. And she said to her husband, Not until the child is weaned will I take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. One thing about Hannah, she had this boy. She vowed that she would give him to the Lord forever, and she carried through it. So Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Do what seems best to you. Wait till you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word. Let the Lord, that's it. And that was great advice. You do what seems right to you, but you're still listening to the Lord, because his word is what we have to obey. Only let the Lord establish his word. Don't close your ear to him. Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. When she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, and they had a sacrifice. And the child was young. For this child, it says, verse 27, I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. Boy, what a tremendous thing that is. So they worship the Lord there. The lady, I give her credit, she asked. She was in tremendous ridicule and bitterness of soul. She asked, she went to God, she went to the right place. And now you see that after God gave her the petition she had asked for, now she went about dedicating the rest of her life on this earth to fulfilling that dedication of Samuel. And Samuel was a holy man of God. All right, we're at over 33 minutes. We read 1 Samuel 1:1, Judges chapter 16, and 1 Samuel 1:1. Okay, now I'm going to look at this here and just bear with me. I'm going to go, the next video we're going to do is going to be the 3rd video of the week. And I am going to go, the 3rd video of the week, we're going to go, it's going to be part 15, part 16, excuse me. We just did part 15. It's going to be part 16, and we're going to read 1 Samuel 8. And we're going to read through that. And then I'm going to get into, as far as I feel right now, the beginning of the four Gospels. Okay, I thank you very much for listening, and we will be back. And I'm looking forward to going into this First Samuel chapter 8 because it's got tremendous historical significance as well as spiritual significance. All right. Thank you for listening, and it's probably, right now it's 20 to 10 Eastern Standard Time, PM. So I'm going to sign off and clumsily put the verses in, and we'll see you again once more this week. Thank you.